Hello and welcome to the big picture. For the last several years, the role of Parliament and the parliamentarians has come under close scrutiny from the public at large. The happenings within the House have come under criticism for the repeated disturbances and diminishing time being given to its legislative function. Vice President and Chairman of the Rajya Sabha, Hamid Ansari, who began his second term today, raised these issues during his acceptance speech and flagged some concerns while handing out some sage advice. His reference to the transition of public mood from passive receptivity to active quest and the need for Parliament to respond to these public perceptions is noteworthy. Greater accountability and sharper awareness of changing requirements of legislations is also another significant point made. His suggestion to the government for democratic accommodation to numerous points of dissent and to the opposition not to indulge in willful hampering and obstruction while quoting his predecessor Sarvepalli Radhakrishnan carry a strong message towards improving the performance of the Parliament. In this context today, we are looking at how the people look at the Parliament and its role as a legislative and deliberative body and the changing demands on the Parliament. To discuss this, I have with me today eminent journalist and Rajya Sabha member H.K.Dua, Prof.Pushpesh Pant, a political analyst and former professor of JNU, Shantaram Naik, a Rajya Sabha MP from the Congress party, and Aditi Phadnis, political editor of Business Standard, who has observed the functioning of the Parliament from close quarters for several years now. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Dua, you have been on both sides of the fence reporting this Parliament for years, for decades, and now you're a parliamentarian. When you look back at your experience of observing the functioning of Parliament, say about 30, 40 years ago, and now, there are perceptible changes, isn't it?
There is certainly change. There is change in the country's mood, as well as in Parliament and Parliament's mood. The people earlier, the political parties also fielded the best of the leaders for Parliament. Look at Rajya Sabha had Bhupesh Gupta, Lok Sabha had Hiren Mukherjee, whose oratorical skill everybody admired all over the world. Indrajit Gupta, A.K. Gopalan. Swatantra Party on the other side of the spectrum used to have Masani and Dandekar. Nath Pai, for foreign policy kind of speeches, he used to analyze. Treasury benches at Govind Vallabh Pant, Jagjeevan Ram, they were good parliamentarians. Mahavir Tyagi. Every part, Madhulimai.
Right.
Now,
Atal Bihari
Vajpayee, Professor N.G. Ranga, each party had the best of the people sent to Parliament, and the level of the debate was very, very high. We never saw entire House proceedings getting blocked. Nowhere. There were German versions, there were different viewpoints. Every viewpoint was allowed. Debates were orderly. Occasionally, an odd member staged a walkout, but came back after 5 minutes.
And somebody staging a walkout was big news.
That was the news. But now, the entire party walks out, sections of the House, entire opposition walks out, and the House gets stalled. And that is reported in Parliament, not what is exactly happened. Some of the debates have been very good in this Rajya Sabha and this Parliament also. But that gets drowned. Visually, orderly debate is not a good visual, and because now proceedings
it's not good television apparently.
It's not good. And those days there was no television. This was a more reasoned debate. There used to be a sense of humor. There's tolerance and the view. Opposition should tolerate the government's view and differ. Government treasury benches used to tolerate the opposition criticism, yet differ. So that's how parliamentary democracy works. Over the years, maybe pressures of the street or frustrations of the politicians when they don't come into power, other parties become the opposition and opposition comes to the party. Then the attitudes to Parliament changes. So pressures of the street are now exerting more than they used to do it earlier.
Pressures of the street.
Street.
Pressures of the street,
Street.
Pushpesh Pant.
I think I would agree with Mr. Dua, but I would make a slight distinction. I would say the pressures of the streets do not necessarily have to reflect in the parliament.
Should not. I'm not
They should
justifying.
not.
In fact,
I
if
was
you-
analyzing.
Mr. Hamid Ansari's speech, he makes a very interesting point. He says that there should be agitation and there should be discussion. But the agitation
But the
should
place
be
of the
on the
agitation
streets.
and as
As
Mr.
discussion.
Dua rightly pointed out, the space for debate is inside the House.
Right.
I think part of the problem is that the parties, as he pointed out, are not fielding their best people necessarily for parliamentary elections. Some are in the organization, some are working outside electoral politics maybe. But the interesting part is this, that maybe there has been a diminishing in our public life of civil discourse. We are not interested in a debate or reasoned argument to convince the other adversary of our point of view. And I think the decline starts with the emergency and Mrs. Gandhi's assassination and the return of Mr. Rajiv Gandhi with a brute majority. And I think it was the Vice President, then in chair, Mr. Shankar Dayal Sharma, who was reduced to tears. I mean,
Absolutely.
the problem, it was not opposition creating mayhem. It was basically the shouting brigade, which thought that they had such a brute majority that they could ride roughshod over everybody.
Absolutely.
So I unfortunately, it was pretty distressing the other day when you had the leader of the UPA urging the colleagues to shout and drown out a particularly inane remark, perhaps ill-advised by Mr. Advani. Because I think if the strength of the vocal cords is supposed to be your best asset, then the parliament is going to be a
That's
sad
another
place.
interesting thing. What in today's Mr. Dua was there. He's Mr. Hamid Ansari. It was a very short acceptance speech, but he made very, very crucial points. He
No,
said
it is very, very vital issues.
very vital issues. He said that there are numerous points of dissent, but government should learn to accommodate these things democratically.
To be fair to him, himself allowed numerous viewpoints being expressed in the House in 5 years, and I've seen him for over 2.5 years now in Parliament. He has allowed all shades of opinion, and that goes to his credit. And that's why perhaps he is getting the second term, and everybody seemed to be welcoming his getting the second term, although that was the last was Dr. Radhakrishnan way back. But he also made the real point, and he's talking of pressures of the streets in a more dignified words, that agitation should be outside the House.
Absolutely.
Inside should be reasoned debate, particularly when opportunity is given to opposition, to even smaller parties have the opportunity. Dissenting opinion ought to be expressed. Without that, there is no democracy. But to hold the House to ransom, you do this, otherwise we will not let the House function. That is a new phenomenon, and that is worrying. And I'm sure that was in his mind, and that was in mind of everybody who liked it, as Pushpesh says, there should be reasoned debate.
Let me get Mr. Shantaram Naik. Mr. Shantaram Naik, see, Mr. Pushpesh Pant raised certain issues. Mr. H.K.Dua has been raising certain issues. Now, you as a member of the ruling party, when you sit in the Rajya Sabha, how much patience and tolerance do you think is needed by the ruling party when it comes across these kind of situations within the House?
I would not say just because I am a Congress member, but I am telling you, I would like to tell you that UPA government has been very, very accommodative as far as the views of opposition is concerned. Many times the government has gone out of way to accommodate the views of the opposition parties. But they have adopted one strategy. The opposition has adopted one strategy. I will tell you what it is. They will demand a discussion on topic, short duration discussion. Their leader will make a speech, say for about 45 minutes.
Yes.
And thereafter, there are internal instructions to disrupt. That is, we hear the speech of the leader of opposition peacefully, pin drop silence, and after his speech is over, the other member disrupt the house and the day is over. So, what does newspaper carry? What does media carry? The speech of the leader of the opposition. Secondly, in 0 hour, what happens in 0 hour? Supposing they mention an issue, immediately after that topic is over, they will disperse the house. This happened today. I was a victim of that. My item was number 2. The first item was raised. After that, immediately they disrupted the house, and rest of the members did not get any opportunity. This is a strategy being adopted for last few years by the opposition. They first plead with the chairperson, a small topic we would like to raise in the interest of people. People are asking, and then when they are given the opportunity, they will issue, they will make their viewpoint very clearly, and thereafter will not allow even the main speaker of the party to make any speech. This
Mr.
is
Naik,
what
I
is
think
happening.
I think you raised a relevant issue as far as problems. You rightly said that you're not speaking as a member of the, but yeah, Aditi, this problem of even the ruling party members have their own complaints, but looking at the larger issue, has there been a change in the people's expectation of parliament? Mr. Hamid Ansari in his speech was pointing out how from public mood has changed from passive receptivity to active quest. How is that reflected in the House? Do you think the political parties, the members of parliament, are in tune with this active quest of the public?
Well, everything has changed in India, and therefore I think we should expect some kind of change in the conduct of Parliament as well. Yes, there are pressures, not the least of them from television. You are constantly on watch, your constituents are looking at you, they're asking themselves, why is this man not raising my problem? Why is he raising something else that is totally peripheral to my existence? And people, MPs, very often are unable to reconcile this into the way they conduct themselves on on the floor of the House. There are a number of excellent speakers. I mean, you have Mr. Chidambaram, you have Arun Jaitley, you have Manishankar Iyer. Their brilliance really shines forth.
Absolutely.
But yes, there is a problem because there are people who are, I will not name them, but at least two of those MPs in the Rajya Sabha have since retired, and one of them told me, who is otherwise an extremely nice, very gentlemanly, very soft-spoken person, said that from Orissa, he said that he's got his job only because he is a very disruptive force in the opposition bench.
Mr. Dua?
No, she's right. I know the people she's referring to also. I asked this gentleman former member from Odisha.
The problem here is with the political parties for choosing
parties.
such members.
That's why the political parties often feel the person who is demonstrative by nature. And I asked him, will not this obstructionist behavior, you're jumping into the well of the House and shouting slogans, raising the decibel level, not letting the debate continue what's before the House, and you want to impose your agenda, and the House gets adjourned for 15 minutes, another 50 minutes, then till 2 o'clock, and then sometimes often for the day.
No, Mr. Shantaram Naik has a...
How do your constituents react to it? Don't you think you will lose public following in your constituent back, although Rajya Sabha doesn't have the direct election? But it makes a difference whether you are popular in your area and all that for the political
should make
party.
a difference to the party.
So Aditi was referring to that. I asked him, this gentleman from Odisha, and he's otherwise decent person in the lobbies, and you meet him in Central Hall, thorough gentleman. He said, no, my constituent thinks I'm working hard in Parliament. That is exactly what he said, and he stunned me with his answer.
Anyway, we will continue this discussion. We need to go into a short break now. We'll come back and look at other issues which have been raised in Mr. Hamid Ansari's speech, and also the general concern about the deteriorating standards in the Parliament. Please keep watching. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. We are discussing the changing demands on Parliament, Professor Pant. When we talk of the changing public mood and things like that, and also the changing nature of the parliamentary performance of the MPs and what Mr. Dua and Shantaram Naik and all were talking about, this also reflects the changes in the society.
They do, of course. And I think as Aditi was making a very, very valid point, that is not only the parliament has changed, the country has changed, the world has changed. And if you look at the population, the demographic
And the coalition era also seems to have added to it.
Yes, I think there's a very interesting point to substantiate what Mr. Naik was saying. He said as a member of the ruling party, he didn't get his chance to make his point today. But who's a member of the ruling party today, maybe in the era of coalition politics, the opposition the next day.
Yes.
And I think the Mr. Ansari makes this very interesting point, that the public is no longer a passive recipient of what they are watching.
Absolutely.
They want to actively participate and realize what they expect out of their legislators. It's not enough for the legislators to say that we have been elected, we have the popular mandate, we'll do what we want, we know what is best for them for the next 5 years. I think another thing which I would like to bring into the discussion is, when you talk of parliament, it's two houses. And all my life of 65 years, one chose to think of the Rajya Sabha as a house where wisdom resided,
Absolutely.
where better sense prevailed, where more, shall we say, courteous discourse took place. Because as Mr. Dua pointed out, the elected members have to address to their constituents.
Absolutely.
But the elders, the Council of States, did not have to do this because they were indirectly elected. Unfortunately, what is happening is that the population of the Rajya Sabha, it has also changed the demographic, not only the profile of Rajya Sabha,
The demography of Rajya
but the
Sabha.
complexion, and especially after the amendment, but after the amendment, that you did not have to belong to a particular domicile
Absolutely.
in a particular state.
Yes.
I think that we have the number of celebrities who are again fronted in Rajya Sabha, awarded, rewarded, punished, whatever, rehabilitated. And the problem is that the decline in the standards of, shall we say, civil discourse in Rajya Sabha is more distressing.
Absolutely. Mr. Dua, interestingly, one of the members of your house, during a discussion last week, was pointing out how Rajya Sabha is just become an imitation of Lok Sabha. But I'm sure the constitution makers had something else in their mind. It should not just be a replica of what happens in Lok Sabha is happening in Rajya Sabha.
You see, often the people think that Rajya Sabha is a revisionary house.
Yes.
If Lok Sabha has passed a law because
Right.
of passions having been aroused in public passions will assert on the legislation before the House, and Lok Sabha will be more amenable to public pressure because they have to fight elections. But the Rajya Sabha also has become amenable to public pressures.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about it. So it's no longer revisionary house. Even in the constitution, actually, it's not that revisionary house. There are much legislation can be initiated in the Rajya Sabha and then goes for a revision. So it's bicameral nature of parliament is both sides become revisionary, both sides can, except for the money bills, the financial business,
Yes.
the budget, that power has Lok Sabha. Otherwise, the powers of both the houses are similar. Particularly when the
classic
matters,
example in the recent past, a positive example I would say, is how the Lokpal bill, after getting passed in the Lok Sabha, comes to Rajya Sabha, finds a lot of dissent about it, and then it goes back to a select committee. This is a positive development.
No, earlier also, when Privy Purse's bill was coming,
Right,
it
yes.
was defeated in the Rajya Sabha by 1/3 of a vote, because it requires 2/3 majority present
For
and
a
voting.
constitutional amendment.
So there were no computers at that time
Yeah.
or calculation that time, so they were doing it with hand. And care was to be taken. The chair asked the secretarial staff to again count. A fraction of vote defeated the Privy Purse's bill brought forward by Mrs. Gandhi much before the emergency when things were happening though. The problem is this time that when Rajya Sabha as well as Lok Sabha has come out in public glare, disruptions particularly, the proceedings don't take place. The whole day's proceedings are washed out. Sometimes session was washed out, unfortunately. It is not one member's odd behavior that leads to problem. It used to be earlier there could be in 80s and he referred to noise brigade, Pushpesh Pant.
Shouting brigade.
Shouting brigade. Now the decision is taken even before the House begins. When you sit there and you come to know today question hour will proceed or not proceed, 0 hour will proceed or not proceed, there will be trouble on this issue. The decision is
members like you are clueless what is going to happen, and when you come inside
no,
the
we are
house,
not clueless. Members who are journalists and members, they're not clueless. But the point is, the the leadership of the party, political party, which wants to disturb the House, the decision to disturb the House has been taken before they enter.
Absolutely.
Now, whether it's coalition politics, whether it's insistent,
Or collusion politics.
that is one. B, they want to impress their people. We have taken up your cause.
Mr. Shantaram Naik, as a member of a ruling party.
I would like to say something. See,
Yes, yes.
The debate was halfway.
Yes, please.
Other panelists had a lot of opportunity to say something.
No, please.
Yes. See, I would like to tell you, don't feel bad, but
No, nobody.
media is also equally responsible to what is happening.
Absolutely.
I will tell you, I am very senior member. I have been member of parliament since '84.
Right.
See, at that time I recollect there was no electronic media, but print media is to reserve certain space for parliamentary proceedings. Debates were given due prominence. Today no debate is published by print media nor being telecast by normal electronic media. And
Right.
therefore, perhaps some political parties think if they shout in the well, that is carried, and a full-fledged debate on a very serious topic which normally takes in the evenings, nobody publishes even one line of the debate, except maybe the reply of the minister at the end of the debate. So this is what is responsible for people going to well and shouting. That carries weight.
Mr.
Besides, after
Absolutely.
they come
Mr.
from
Naik.
shouting after the parliament house, you would also take the bites of those persons who are shouting.
Absolutely.
Whereas
No.
those who are participating in the debates, you don't even bother.
Absolutely, Mr. Naik. I don't think anybody here in the panel, will disagree with what you're saying. Aditi?
I will agree with him. Number one, the newspapers don't report the proceedings and the speeches, as it used to be. Pages after pages,
Pages
are given,
after-
and the flavor of the debate, the dissenting opinion as well as the ruling party's opinion, the stories used to be balanced. And that was-
Absolutely.
that was what
Aditi,
we were
what has
told.
gone wrong with the media? We have in all these things we have to talk about. Inevitably, repeatedly this problem has been, we have been discussing for. But
This is the appeal of the visual.
is it the visual media which has changed everything? And because of it, that has had an effect on the print media also. We don't see as much coverage in the print media also now as it, even at least 10 years back, if you compare.
Well, you've got two full-time live channels which give you everything that is happening in Parliament. So why on earth should lengthy debates be carried and newsprint be wasted? Anyone who wants to hear any MP speak simply has to turn on either Lok Sabha or Rajya
Is that the
Sabha TV.
logic of the print media?
Of
No, no,
course.
not at all,
I
not
mean,
at
there
all,
is a
not at
lot
all,
of
not at all.
there is a lot of stuff that gets into the papers that is sometimes repeated on TV. But you have no idea how much pressure we are under to ensure that what TV has been saying and shrieking and shouting and speaking all day, we have to find something new to say. So,
Mr. Dua?
frankly,
I will not
mean,
agree with that. I think the newspapers have to give all shades of opinion which find reflection in Parliament. They have to be reflected in the media.
What Aditi is saying is
But only the
that we don't want to read. The print media should not repeat or do not want to repeat
No, there's
what
no-
is already shown in
They
television.
have to do their duty.
Well,
Not
so
everyone sees TV and not everyone reads the newspapers. Let's face facts.
No, I think the
if
two-
the matter is of public interest, both print media and the television have to report. If the matter is not of public interest, it
I
should
think
not
I would
report.
agree with Mr. Dua that if it's a matter of public interest, newspapers cannot say it's been covered by the TV, so we won't
They
do
can't
it.
be
But
selective.
the television has a short shelf life.
Right.
It is a fleeting image, it is a crisp sound bite, and the newspaper gives you lots to read,
Absolutely.
analyze, and you cannot have it without a context. So I think the newspaper cannot shirk and say we are not doing what is being shown in two full-fledged channels, or the third one if you will put in the
The
Prasar
test
Bharati as
of
well.
reporting is whether it's in public interest or not. If it's in public interest, newspapers have to report and TV have to report. That's the test.
Mr. Dua, I mean, all of you, we are running out of time. I want all of you to say, the present instances of what is happening today in Ramlila Maidan in the last few days, that immediately gets reflected in the house instead of the way it gets reflected, the way these kind of street agitations, nobody is against street agitations, nobody is against raising by the civil society raising these kind of issues, but how it gets reflected in the parliament, isn't there a cause for concern?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so, Girish.
No, they
I
should
think
be
both of us-
reflected. That
I
I'm
think
not
both of
worried.
us-
The way it
But
gets
there is
reflected.
other agendas also before Parliament passing of the legislation. That's
Absolutely.
not reflected in the media.
I think for the Vice President's speech very categorically makes out that you should have in the House the space to debate the difference and dissenting opinion which is being articulated outside because they are not elected representatives.
Right.
I think that's the valid point. It should. I would be entirely.
So many
against it.
questions are asked, answers are given, so many policies are announced. They're not reflected in media at all. But the theatre part is getting reflected.
The theatre part gets reflected and there is more theatre within the house.
Absolutely. Both are.
Aditi?
I don't agree. I don't agree. Respectfully, I would like to say that yes, theatre does get represented. It does find way in the print media, but there are several policy issues on which, if the government says something important, that also gets reflected.
I'm
on a different point now. I'm away from the media. I'm talking about how the political parties reflect these kind of street issues taken up on the street by various civil society groups, how political parties react within the house on those issues.
If there is a debate, answering Aditi's point, if there is a debate on a particular policy decision or a bill, what you find in the newspaper is the ministerial reply. So many points have been made by members criticizing or support, and there can be shades of differences also. They are not reflected. Only the major announcement is reflected.
Absolutely.
Now, that variety of the opinion which Parliament should reflect on an issue, which is also educative value to the people.
Which actually gets reflected within the parliament, doesn't get reflected in the media.
That's true. If there is a debate, orderly debate, yes, it gets reflected.
There are a lot of orderly
but the media
debates.
doesn't
All said
get
and
the
done, there are a
picture
lot of
what
orderly
happened.
But
debates.
here's the important caveat: if there is an orderly debate.
Well, that's one part of it, and let me just say briefly
Yes.
that when we report, and a colleague has missed a speech, and he comes and asks us what did that person say, so our reply used to be, and even now is very succinct. He also spoke, which means that his speech was okay. It wasn't.
I remember.
I'm sure Mr. Dua knows this very well.
In my reporting days, sometimes speeches do get removed. Some of we bracketed the speakers who could not be accommodated. They also spoke. There used to be a member from Kutch, one Mr. B.M. Anthani, old respected member, and he spoke very well for 15 minutes. He got one line. He also spoke. He says he had a nice thing to say. If tomorrow Mark Antony speaks, people will write. He also spoke.
Anyway, we have completely run out of time. But this is a subject and a discussion which needs to be kept up because the changing phase of Parliament, the changing demands of the people, all these things are something which cannot be discussed in half an hour. But we need to keep watch and see how the standards of debate, standards of deliberations in the Parliament can be improved. Thanks to all my guests. Thank you, Mr. Shantaram Naik. Sorry I couldn't come back to you again. Mr. H.K.Dua, Aditi Phadnis and Prof.Pushpesh Pant. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue on the big picture, same time tomorrow.